When Maya Chen's career-ending presentation humiliated her in front of the most powerful CEO in America, she thought her life was over. She had nitrogen monoxide idea. It was just beginning asterisk what happens when the man who destroyed your career becomes your salvation. Asterisk welcome. Back, beautiful people. Today's story is equal parts drama and devotion, and trust us, you'll be hooked from the very first line. Asterisk the projector screen flickered to life, casting Maya Chen's face across the boardroom wall in harsh, unforgiving pixels. 23 years old, coffee-stained blazer, eyes wide with panic as she clutched a stack of scattered papers. The timestamp read 9:47 a.m. 3 months ago. "This," said the voice behind the camera, dripping with contempt, "is what happens when you send a child to do an adult's job." Maya's stomach clenched as she watched herself stumble through the presentation she'd worked on for weeks. In the video, her voice cracked as she tried to explain the quarterly projections, while senior executives exchanged knowing glances. She remembered that moment with crystalline clarity, the way her hands shook, how her carefully rehearsed words crumbled into stuttering fragments. But it was what came next that made her blood run cold. Perhaps came that same voice, now addressing the room directly. "We should consider whether Hartwell and Associates is truly equipped to handle accounts of this magnitude." The camera panned to show him then. Adrian Blackwood, CEO of Meridian Capital. 6 feet of tailored perfection, steel gray eyes that could dissect a soul, and a smile that promised nothing but devastation. He was younger than she'd expected for. Someone with his reputation, maybe 5, with the kind of dangerous charisma that made boardrooms fall silent when he spoke. "After all," he continued, his gaze finding Maya through the lens, "competence isn't negotiable at this level." The video ended. The conference room at Hartwell and Associates fell into suffocating silence. They pulled the Meridian account. "Her boss, Richard Hartwell," said quietly. His voice carried the weight of a man watching his life's work crumble. "Ah!" Maya felt the stares of her colleagues burning into her skin. Janet from accounting wouldn't meet her eyes. Marcus from legal cleared his throat awkwardly. The new intern looked terrified, as if failure might be contagious. Maya Richard continued, and she heard her execution in those 2 syllables. "We need to talk privately." The others filed out like mourners leaving a funeral. Maya remained seated, her hands folded in her lap, to hide their trembling. The leather chair that had once felt like a symbol of her rising career now felt like an electric chair. Richard closed the door with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot. 3 years, he said, not turning around. 3 years you've been with us. I watched you graduate summa cum laude from Columbia. I saw you work 18-hour days on the Peterson merger. I believed in you, Richard. I can explain, can you?" He spun around and Maya saw something she'd never seen before in his usually kind eyes: fury. "Can you explain how our star analyst froze up in front of the biggest client we've ever had? Can you explain how Adrian Blackwood walked away from a $50 million partnership because he thought we were amateurs?" Maya's chest tightened. She wanted to tell him about the sleepless nights, the anxiety attacks she'd hidden in bathroom stalls, the way Adrian Blackwood's reputation for destroying careers had haunted her dreams. But excuses wouldn't resurrect a dead deal. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "A mistake?" Richard laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Maya, this wasn't spilling coffee on your blouse. This was professional suicide. And you took us down with you." The words hit like physical blows. Maya had spent her entire adult life building toward this moment, this career, this version of herself that mattered. Now she watched it dissolve like sugar in rain. "What happens now?" she asked. Richard's expression softened, but only slightly. "You know what happens now?" Maya nodded slowly. She'd known the moment she saw that video. "When?" "End of the week. I'll give you a reference." But Maya, he paused, choosing his words carefully. "Adrian Blackwood has a long memory. Longer. Reach. What happened in that boardroom? It's going to follow you." After Richard left, Maya sat alone in the conference room as Manhattan's skyline glittered mockingly beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. She pulled out her phone and opened the video that had already gone viral in their industry circles. Comments were brutal. This is why you don't send kids to grown-up meetings. Blackwood ate her alive. Brutal but necessary. Career over before it started? Yikes. But it was the final comment that made her blood freeze. Adrian Blackwood doesn't just win, he destroys. This girl has no idea what's coming next. Maya stared at her reflection in the darkened conference table. 23 years old, unemployed, and professionally assassinated by a man who didn't even know her name. She thought about calling her parents, imagining her mother's disappointed silence, her father's gentle questions about backup plans she didn't have. Instead, she stood up, smoothed her coffee-stained blazer, and walked toward the elevator. Receptionist avoided eye contact. The security guard nodded sympathetically. By tomorrow, she'd be a cautionary tale whispered in break rooms across the financial district. As the elevator descended, Maya made a promise to herself. Adrian Blackwood had humiliated her, cost her everything she'd worked for, and apparently wasn't finished with her yet? Fine, let him come. She'd be ready. 6 months later, Maya Chen had become a ghost in her own life. The studio apartment in Brooklyn felt more like a tomb than a home. Empty takeout containers created small cities across her coffee table. Her business degree hung crooked on the wall, mocking her with its gold seal and promises of success. She'd stopped answering her parents' calls 2 weeks ago. Unable to bear another conversation about temporary setbacks and new opportunities, there were no opportunities. Not anymore. Adrian Blackwood's influence spread through the financial world like ink through water. Every interview ended the same way. Polite interest, impressive credentials, then the inevitable moment when her name triggered recognition. The shift in their expressions was always identical sympathy mixed with fear, as if association with her might be contagious. Maya was arranging her meager groceries when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Maya Chen? The voice was female, crisp, professional. Yes. This is Sarah Mitchell from Blackwood Enterprises. Mr. Blackwood would like to schedule a meeting with you. Maya's heart stopped, then started again, too fast. I'm sorry, what? Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the Meridian Tower, 42nd floor. Can you make it? 1,000 questions flooded Maya's mind, but only one escaped. Why? Mr. Blackwood will explain. Everything tomorrow? A pause. Miss Chen, don't be late. The line went dead. Maya stared at her phone, fingers trembling. After 6 months of silence, Adrian Blackwood wanted to see her. The man who destroyed her career with surgical precision was summoning her like a condemned prisoner called before the executioner. She should refuse. Block the number. Pretend this conversation never happened. Instead, she opened her laptop and researched everything she could find about Blackwood Enterprises' recent moves. The next afternoon, Maya stood before Meridian Towers. Gleaming facade, a 50-story monument to corporate dominance that seemed to pierce the sky itself. Her reflection in the glass looked small, insignificant. She'd chosen her last good suit, navy blue with subtle pinstripes, and spent an hour taming her hair into something resembling professional composure. The lobby was a cathedral of marble and steel, populated by people who moved with the confidence of those who'd never known failure. Maya approached the reception desk, acutely aware of how her shoes echoed against the polished floor. Maya Chen for Mr. Blackwood. The receptionist's smile was perfectly calibrated. 42nd floor? Ms. Mitchell will meet you. The elevator ride felt eternal. Maya watched the numbers climb, each floor marking another level of her ascent, into the domain of the man who'd ruined her life. When the doors finally opened, she stepped into a space that felt more like an art gallery than an office. Original paintings lined the walls, and the view of Manhattan spread out like a conquered kingdom. Miss Chen. Sarah Mitchell appeared as if materialized from the air itself. She was everything Maya expected from Blackwood's assistant. Efficient, with eyes that saw everything and revealed nothing. They walked through corridors lined with floor-toozling windows, past conference rooms where serious-faced people moved millions of dollars with casual gestures. Maya caught glimpses of her reflection in the glass, a small figure dwarfed by the magnitude of this place. Sarah stopped before double doors that looked heavy enough to guard a treasury. "A word of advice," she said quietly. "Adrian Blackwood. Doesn't waste time on small talk. He's called you here for a reason. Figure out what that reason is before you speak." The doors opened. Adrian Blackwood stood with his back to her, silhouetted against a wall of windows that framed Manhattan, like a painting. He was exactly as she remembered Dell, imposing, with the kind of presence that made rooms rearrange themselves around him. But something was different. Perfect composure she remembered from the boardroom seemed strained, as if held together by sheer will. "Maya Chen," he turned, and those steel-gray eyes found hers immediately. "You look terrible." Maya's composure. "Cracked. Excuse me. 6 months of unemployment? Blacklisted from every major firm in the city? Living on savings that ran out 2 months ago?" He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Yes." "Sit down." Maya remained standing. How do I know about your financial situation? Your employment status? The fact that you haven't returned your parents' calls in 3 weeks?" Adrian moved closer, and Maya caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something else. Exhaustion, maybe, or regret. "Because I've been watching you." The admission hit like a physical blow. "Watching me? You fascinate me, Maya." Adrian's voice was quieter now, almost contemplative. "Do you know what most people do when I destroy their careers? They disappear. Change cities, change industries, change their names if they have to. But not you." "I tried to disappear," Maya said, hating how small her voice sounded. "No, you didn't." Adrian smiled, and it was nothing like the predatory expression she remembered from the boardroom. This smile was complicated, layered with something she couldn't identify. "You stayed. You fought. Even when every door slammed in your face, even when my name became a scarlet letter on your resume, you stayed and you fought. I had nowhere else to go." Bullshit. The word cracked like a whip. You had Columbia connections. You had family money you could have borrowed. You had a dozen ways out, but you chose to stay because you wanted to prove something. Maya's heart pounded. "What are you getting at?" Adrian moved to his desk, picked up a file, and tossed it toward her. Maya caught it instinctively, then looked down at the cover. Her own name stared back at her. "Open it." Inside were documents, reports, financial projections, all from her signature, all from her time at Hartwell and Associates. But these weren't the fumbling, anxious attempts at analysis she remembered creating. These were brilliant, insightful, the kind of work that built careers and moved markets. "Your analysis of the Henderson merger was masterful," Adrian said. "Your projections on the tech sector were 3 months ahead of everyone else. Your work on the Morrison acquisition saved Hartwell $2 million. Maya looked up confusion. "Warring with something dangerous up. And why did I destroy you over one bad presentation?" Adrian leaned against his desk, arms crossed. "Because I needed to see who you really were, under pressure, when everything was falling apart, when you had nothing left to lose." The file slipped from Maya's hands, papers scattering across the carpet. "You've been testing me? Been watching you rebuild yourself from nothing? I've seen you take jobs you were overqualified for without complaint. I've watched you help other people even when you could barely help yourself. And I've seen you refuse to give up even when giving up would have been the smart thing to do." Maya felt something crack inside her chestinger, relief, and something else she couldn't name. "You ruined my life for a test? I gave you a chance to discover who you really are." Adrian's voice softened. "And now I'm giving you another one." He moved to his desk, pulled out a thick envelope, and held it out to her. "Blackwood Enterprises is expanding. We need someone to head our new acquisitions department. Someone brilliant, ruthless, and absolutely unbreakable." Maya stared at the envelope without taking it. "You want to hire me? I want to unleash you." Adrian's eyes never left hers. The woman who walked into that boardroom 6 months ago was talented but fragile. The woman standing in front of me now is something else entirely. Maya's hands shook as she reached for the envelope. Inside was a contract, terms and conditions, and a salary that made her knees weak. "Why?" she whispered. Adrian stepped closer. close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his gray eyes, because I recognize a predator when I see one. And Maya Chen, you're finally ready to hunt? 3 months into her new position, Maya Chen had become someone she barely recognized. The transformation was surgical in its precision. Gone was the anxious analyst who trembled in boardrooms. In her place stood a woman who could dissect a company's weaknesses with clinical efficiency, who could smile while delivering news that would shatter careers, who wore power like a second skin. Adrian had been right. She was finally ready to hunt. The Henderson Group is hemorrhaging money from their European division, Maya said, sliding the report across the conference table. Their quarterly losses are hidden behind creative accounting. But the fundamentals are rotten. If we can acquire them for 60% of their actual value, if we move within the next 2 weeks. The board members leaned forward, sharks scenting blood. Maya had learned to read their expressions, to play their greed like a finely tuned instrument. Da-da-da-da-da. But her eyes found Adrian's across the room, seeking his approval, his acknowledgement. Watched her with something that might have been pride. Or hunger. Exceptional work, Adrian said after the meeting ended, as the others filed out in excited clusters. Henderson's management team will fight the acquisition. Let them fight. Maya gathered her papers with fluid efficiency. I've already identified 3 board members willing to support a hostile takeover. Henderson's CEO has a gambling problem he thinks nobody knows about. His CFO is having an affair with their head of legal. People with secrets make poor negotiators. Adrian's smile was sharp as a blade. Ruthless. I like it. They were alone now in the conference room, Manhattan glittering beyond the windows like a circuit board of ambition and desire. Maya had grown comfortable in these moments. The quiet conversations after the storms of business were finished. There's something else, she said, producing another file. The Morrison deal you're working on. Think you're approaching it wrong. Adrian's eyebrow arched. Is that so? Morrison's weakness isn't financial, it's personal. James Morrison built that company as a legacy for his son. But his son is a drug addict who's been embezzling funds to support his habit. Morrison's been covering the losses, but he can't much longer. And you suggest? Maya moved closer, her heels clicking against the polished floor. We don't attack the company. We offer to save it. Position ourselves as the White Knight protecting Morrison's legacy while his son gets the help he needs. Morrison signs over control voluntarily, and we look like heroes instead of raiders. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those penetrating gray eyes. Then he smiled, and Maya felt something dangerous unfurl in her chest. Brilliant, he said softly. Absolutely brilliant. They worked late that night, refining the Morrison strategy in Adrian's private office. The space was intimate in the way only money could buy. Leather chairs worn soft with age. A bar stocked with whiskey older than Maya. Books that looked actually read rather than merely displayed. You've changed, Adrian said, pouring amber liquid into crystal glasses. When you walked into that first boardroom, you were trying to be someone you thought you should be. Now you're becoming who you actually are. Maya accepted the whiskey, letting the burn ground her. And who am I? Someone magnificent. Someone dangerous. Adrian moved to the window, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. Someone like me. The words hung between them, loaded with implication. Maya had felt this current building for weeks way. Their hands brushed when exchanging documents. The way his eyes lingered on her during meetings. The way conversations turned intimate when they were alone. Is that what you wanted? She asked. To create someone like you. Adrian turned, and the distance between them seemed to shrink without either of them moving. I wanted to see what you'd become if all the barriers were removed. If fear and doubt and other people's expectations were stripped away. And what did you find? Fire? His voice was barely above a whisper. Pure, beautiful fire. Ah, Maya felt. Herself moving toward him, drawn by gravity or magnetism or something deeper. Adrian, don't. He held up a hand, but his eyes betrayed him, hunger and conflict warring in their depths. Don't say whatever you're about to say. Why not? Because we both know where this leads. And once we cross that line, there's no going back. Maya stopped mere inches from him, close enough to feel the heat of his body to catch the subtle scent of his cologne mixed with whiskey, and something uniquely him. Maybe I don't want to go back. Maya, her name was a warning, a plea, a prayer. You destroyed my old life to create this one, she said, reaching up to straighten his tie. With steady fingers, you taught me to be ruthless, to take what I want without apology. So why are you surprised when I want you? Adrian's hand covered hers, stilling her movements. Because you don't know what you're asking for, then tell me. For a moment, his mask slipped completely. Maya saw exhaustion, loneliness, and something that might have been fear. I'm not a good man, Maya. I've destroyed careers, ruined lives, broken things that couldn't be fixed. Being close to me is dangerous. I think I can handle dangerous. Adrian's laugh was bitter. 6 months ago, you couldn't handle a simple presentation. Now you think you can handle me. The words stung, but Maya didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled the predator's smile he'd taught her to wear. 6 months ago, I was someone else, someone weak. Someone who let other people define her limits. She stepped closer, closing the final distance between them. That woman is dead, Adrian. You killed her.
Yes.
And you created someone who doesn't break. For a heartbeat, they stood frozen, the air between them electric with possibility. Then Adrian's control shattered. His mouth found hers with desperate hunger, his hands tangling in her hair as he pressed her back against the window. Maya responded with equal fervor, months of tension and desire finally finding release. The kiss was nothing like the gentle, romantic gestures she'd experienced before. This was consumption, claiming two predators recognizing their match. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. This is a mistake, Adrian whispered against her lips. Probably, Maya agreed, her fingers working at the buttons of his shirt. I've learned something about myself these past months. What's that? Maya smiled, pulling him down for another kiss. I like making beautiful mistakes. But even as they surrendered to the inevitable, neither of them noticed the security camera in the corner of the office, its red light blinking steadily in the darkness. And neither of them saw the figure watching from the building across the street, taking careful note of everything that transpired. Some mistakes, no matter how beautiful, carried prices that couldn't be calculated until it was too late to pay them. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by courier to Maya's new penthouse apartment. No return address, just her name, written in careful script across expensive paper. Inside were photographs. Maya's hands trembled as she spread them across her kitchen counter. Dozens of images, all taken with telephoto precision. Her and Adrian in his office, her and Adrian at dinner, her and Adrian in moments she'd thought were private, intimate, sacred. But it was the final photograph that made her blood turn to ice. Adrian's face, captured in profile as he spoke into his phone. The timestamp showed last week, the night after their first time together. The image quality was crystal clear, professional, and paperclipped to it was a transcript. Phase 3 is complete. She's completely under my control now. How can you be certain? Because she thinks she's in love with me. Maya Chen has become exactly what we need her, to be brilliant, ruthless, and completely loyal. When the time comes, she'll do whatever I ask without question. And the Henderson acquisition? She's already delivered it to us on a silver platter, along with Morrison and 3 others. Her emotional attachment makes her predictable. Excellent. The board will be pleased. How much longer before full implementation? Give me another month. I want to be absolutely certain she's ready for the final phase. Maya's legs gave out. She slumped onto a bar stool, the photographs scattered around her like evidence at a crime scene. Every tender moment, every whispered endearment, every time. She'd felt beautiful and powerful and loved all of it. Choreographed, calculated, a performance so convincing that even she had believed it. Her phone buzzed. Adrian's name on the screen, accompanied by a heart emoji she'd added weeks ago in a moment of pathetic vulnerability. Good morning, beautiful. His voice carried that intimate warmth she'd grown addicted to. I was thinking, I know. The words came out strangled, barely human. Silence stretched between them, heavy with implication. Maya. His voice changed, became careful, professional. What do you know? She looked at the photograph spread across her counter, each one a nail in the coffin of her delusions. Everything. Where are you? Does it matter? You've been tracking my every move for months anyway? Another pause. Then Adrian's voice, stripped of all pretense. We need to talk, Maya said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. We don't. We're done talking, Adrian. We're done with everything. She hung up and immediately powered down her phone. The penthouse apartment, Adrian's gift. She now realized it suddenly felt like a cage. Beautiful, expensive, but still a cage. Maya moved through the space like a ghost, gathering documents, laptop, the few personal items that were actually hers. The photographs she left scattered on the counter like accusations. Let him find them when he came looking. Let him see that she knew, but as she reached the door, she stopped, turned back, walked to her laptop and opened it with predatory focus. If Adrian Blackwood thought she was just another victim in his web of manipulation, he was about to learn how wrong he could be. Maya's fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing systems she'd memorized during her months at Blackwood Enterprises. Every password Adrian had shared, every security protocol she'd observed, every backdoor she'd noted in passing. Taught her to be ruthless, to think 10 steps ahead, to use every weapon at her disposal. He'd just forgotten that he'd made himself her most dangerous weapon. By the time Adrian's security team reached the penthouse, Maya was gone. But she'd left them a present. Every deal Adrian had in progress, every confidential strategy, every piece of insider information that gave Blackwood Enterprises its edgel of it uploaded to a secure server with instructions for timed release to the FBI, the SEC, and every major financial publication in the country. The timer was set for 72 hours. Adrian found the note she'd left propped against his laptop. You taught me that everything is a negotiation. Here are my terms. You have 3 days to transfer $50 million to the account number below. If you don't, the world learns exactly how Blackwood Enterprises operates. All those companies you've acquired through blackmail and manipulation, all those lives you've destroyed, every dirty secret becomes public record. P.S. You were right. About one thing. I finally know who I am. I'm someone magnificent, someone dangerous, someone exactly like you. Congratulations. You created a monster. Adrian stared at the note for a long time, and then, impossibly, he began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, built to a roar, became something that might have been hysteria. Or admiration, or both. Sir. Sarah Mitchell appeared in the doorway, concern creasing her usually perfect composure. Clear my schedule, Adrian said, still laughing. Cancel all meetings? And Sarah? Yes, sir? Find Maya Chen. I don't care what it costs or what it takes. Find her. Should I call security or the police? Adrian looked at the note again, at Maya's elegant handwriting promising his destruction, and his smile was pure predator. No, this is personal now. But even as he began planning his countermove, Adrian felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Excitement. Maya Chen had just declared war on him. It turned his own lessons against him with surgical precision. For the first time in his adult life, Adrian Blackwood was facing an opponent who might actually be his equal. The game had finally gotten interesting. Miles away, in a hotel room registered under a name that didn't exist in any database, Maya Chen sat before a wall of monitors, watching Blackwood Enterprises' stock price fluctuate in real time. She'd given Adrian 3 days, but she had no intention of waiting that long. She was going to destroy him the same way he'd destroyed her publicly, completely, and with surgical precision. But first, she was going to make him suffer. Make him feel exactly what she'd felt 6 months ago when her world collapsed. Make him understand what it meant to lose everything. Maya's phoning a new one, untraceable buys with an encrypted message from an old Columbia classmate who now worked at the Financial Times. Got your package? Holy shit, Maya. This is bigger than Enron. How do you want to play it? Maya's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. She typed back quickly. Front page tomorrow morning. Make sure Adrian Blackwood knows it came from me. She leaned back in her chair, watching the city lights twinkle beyond her window. Somewhere out there, Adrian was probably tearing his office apart, trying to figure out her next move. He'd taught her well, In less than 24 hours, Adrian Blackwood would wake up to find his empire in ruins and his reputation in ashes. He'd know exactly what it felt like to be destroyed by someone who was supposed to care about him. Maya Chen was no longer the frightened girl who'd failed a presentation. She was no longer the naive woman who'd fallen for a carefully constructed lie. She was something new, something dangerous, something he'd created and could never control. The hunter had become the hunted, and Maya intended to save her every moment of his fall. The Financial Times headline screamed across newsstands at 6 a.m. Blackwood Enterprises exposed, inside America's most ruthless corporate empire. Maya Chen read it from her hotel room, coffee growing cold in her hands, as she watched her calculated revenge unfold in real time. The article was devastating, methodical, surgical. Every dirty deal, every life destroyed, every law bent or broken in service of Adrian's ambition, of it laid bare for the world to see. Her phone buzzed. CNN wanted an interview. The SEC was opening an investigation. Blackwood Enterprises stock had already plummeted 30% in pre-market trading. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. A knock at her door made her freeze. 3 sharp raps, confident and controlled. Maya's blood turned to ice because she recognized that rhythm. Adrian. She considered not answering. But Adrian Blackwood wasn't someone who accepted closed doors. He'd find another way in. And Maya had learned that facing problems head-on was usually preferable to letting them fester. She opened the door. Adrian stood in the hallway, still wearing yesterday's clothes. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie loosened, his eyes bloodshot with exhaustion. He looked like a man who'd spent the night watching his empire burn. "May I come in?" His voice was carefully neutral. Maya stepped aside, and Adrian walked past her into the room. He moved to the window, hands clasped behind his back, and stared out at the city that had once belonged to him. $50 million, he said quietly. That was your price. It wasn't about the money. No. Adrian turned to face her. It was about watching me burn. And you've done that beautifully. Maya searched his face for anger, for the cold fury she'd expected. Instead, she found something that looked almost like respect. "You're not going to fight this?" she asked. Adrian's smile was tired but genuine. "What would be the point? You've been thorough, complete, every piece of evidence perfectly documented, every witness statement corroborated. You've destroyed me with the precision of a surgeon. You taught me well." "Yes." Adrian moved closer, and Maya forced herself not to step back. "I did, perhaps too well." They stood facing each other in the morning light, predator and prey, with the roles finally reversed. Maya waited for him to threaten her, to promise revenge, to reveal some final trap he'd prepared. Instead, Adrian reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "My resignation from Blackwood Enterprises," he said, holding it out to her, along with a complete confession to every crime detailed in your article. "I've also liquidated my personal assets. The money is being distributed to everyone I've harmed. Over the years, starting with the employees I fired, the competitors I drove out of business, the stop." Maya's voice cracked. "Just stop. The Maya Chen Scholarship Fund will receive $20 million. Full rides to Columbia Business School for promising students from underprivileged backgrounds. I thought you'd appreciate the irony." Stared at the envelope without taking it. "Why? Because you were right. I am a monster. But you're not." Adrian's voice softened. "Despite everything I did to you, despite all the cruelty and manipulation, you still have something I lost years ago." "What? A conscience." Maya felt tears she hadn't expected burning her eyes. "You don't know me. I know you better than anyone alive." Adrian set the envelope on the table between them. "I know you spent 3 sleepless nights wrestling with whether to release those documents. I know you called the suicide prevention hotline twice, worried about the employees who'd lose their jobs because of your actions. I know you've already started planning how to minimize the collateral damage. How could you possibly, because I've been watching you for 10 months, Maya. Not just your professional life. All of it. and despite everything I tried to make you into, you remained fundamentally decent. Maya wiped her eyes angrily. Decent people don't destroy companies. Decent people sometimes have to do terrible things to stop worse things from happening. Adrian moved to the door, then paused. Saved more lives than you destroyed, Maya. Blackwood Enterprises would have kept growing, kept consuming, kept ruining people. You stopped that. At what cost? Adrian's smile was infinitely sad. At the cost of becoming someone you don't recognize. Someone you think you should hate. But Maya, he turned back to her one final time. That woman who brought down Blackwood Enterprises? She's not a monster. She's a hero. The door closed with a soft click, leaving Maya alone with his confession and her victory. 2 hours later, Maya stood in the lobby of the federal building, surrounded by reporters and FBI agents. The envelope containing Adrian's confession felt heavy in her hands as she prepared to deliver it to the authorities. Justice, she thought. This was what justice looked like. But as she approached the agent in charge, her phone buzzed with the news. Alert! Breaking. Adrian Blackwood found dead in Meridian Tower office. Apparent suicide. The envelope fell from Maya's nerveless fingers, scattering pages across the marble floor. Around her, reporters began shouting questions. Cameras flashed. But Maya heard nothing except the roar of her own blood in her ears. She thought of Adrian's final words. The resignation in his voice, the way he'd looked at her like he was memorizing her face. Not the look of a man planning his next move. The look of a man saying goodbye. Maya pushed through the crowd, ignoring the hands grabbing at her, the voices demanding statements. She had to get to Meridian Tower, had to see for herself.
Had you?
Understand what the hell had just happened. The building was surrounded by police cars and news vans. Maya badged her way past security, her Blackwood Enterprises ID still functional for a few more hours. The elevator to the 42nd floor felt like a journey to the underworld. Adrian's office was sealed with police tape, but Maya could see through the glass walls. His desk was neat, organized. A single sheet of paper sat in the center, weighted down by his Mont Blanc pen. Detective Sarah Hayes approached her notebook. In hand, Miss Chen, I'm investigating Mr. Blackwood's death. I understand you two had a relationship. We had a business arrangement, Maya said hollowly. That's not what the security footage suggests. Detective Hayes studied Maya's face carefully. Or the suicide note. Maya's heart stopped. What suicide note? The one addressed to you? Detective Hayes handed her a photocopy. Maya's name was written across the top in Adrian's careful script. Maya, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Don't blame yourself. This isn't about what you did to Mike, it's about what I did to you. To everyone. You asked me once why I chose you. Truth is, I saw something in you that I'd lost long ago. Integrity. The ability to feel genuine emotion. The capacity for love that wasn't calculated or strategic. I told myself I was creating a weapon, molding you into something that could help me build an empire. But what I actually did was fall in love with someone I could never deserve. Someone pure enough to see through my lies and strong enough to stop me. You were never my victim, Maya. You were my salvation. I just realized it too late. The woman who destroyed Blackwood Enterprises isn't a monster. She's the person I could have been if I'd made different choices. If I'd chosen love over power, connection over control. Don't waste your brilliance on guilt. Use it to build something better than what I tore down. The world needs more people like you and fewer like me. Thank you for showing me who I really was and who I could have been. All my love. Adrian. Maya read the note twice, 3 times, tears blurring the words. Around her, the investigation. Continued evidence collected, statements taken, the machinery of law grinding forward. But Maya stood frozen in the center of it all, holding a love letter disguised as a suicide note. Miss Chen? Detective Hayes touched her shoulder gently. You all right? Maya looked up, wiping her eyes. No, but I will be. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, Maya believed that was true. 6 months later, Maya Chen stood before the Columbia Business School graduation ceremony. delivering the keynote address to 200 eager young faces. The podium felt different than it had in corporate boardrooms, less like a weapon, more like a bridge. Failure, she told them, is not the opposite of success. It's the foundation of wisdom. The question isn't whether you'll be broken, you will be. The question is what you'll build from the pieces. In the audience, she spotted faces that reminded her of herself at that age. Hungry, ambitious, ready to conquer the world. She hoped they'd be luckier than she'd been, smarter, kinder. After the ceremony, Maya walked across campus to the library, where a brass plaque had been installed near the entrance. The Adrian Blackwood Memorial Reading Room, it read, dedicated. 2 second chances. It had been Maya's idea over the objections of nearly everyone who knew the story. But Maya understood something they didn't. Monsters weren't born, they were made. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, they could be unmade too. Her phone buzzed with a message from her new business partner, former Blackwood employee, who'd helped expose the company's crimes. Chen and Associates was growing rapidly, built on the radical principle that success didn't require destroying others. Maya smiled, pocketing her phone, and walked toward her car. The late afternoon sun painted the campus golden. For the first time in over a year, Maya felt something she'd almost forgotten. Peace behind her. Students hurried between classes, their futures spread before them like blank pages. Maya had learned that those pages could be rewritten more times than anyone imagined. Failure could become triumph. Victims could become heroes. Even monsters could become human again, if they chose love over power in the end. Maya Chen drove home to her modest apartment in Brooklyn, no longer interested in penthouses or power or proving anything to anyone. She'd been destroyed and reborn, manipulated and freed, loved and betrayed and loved again. She'd learned that the most dangerous person in any room wasn't the one with the most power. It was the one with the least to lose. And Maya Chen had lost everything once already. She had nothing left to fear. Asterisk, comment below. Team Maya or Team Adrian? What do you think is the real villain? Subscribe to the channel, comment where you're listening from, leave a like, it really helps the channel grow. And keeps bringing new, emotional stories like this one. The end.